All right, so, it's almost the holidays, and albeit Congress, they just barely avoided a government shutdown.
Yeah, last minute, as always.
Always right, like just squeaking by.
It's getting to be a habit.
Seriously. I mean, for folks who maybe aren't totally up on the lingo, shutdown means basically essential services stop.
Parts of the government just start functioning, yeah.
Like things, national parks closed, some benefits delayed. It can be a real mess for a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely.
So we dodged it this time, but what we're diving into today is what this whole fight tells us about what we can expect going forward.
Right.
Because we've got some sources here painting a picture of 2025 that's, potentially pretty rocky.
Yeah, buckle up.
Yeah, buckle up. So we're talking deadlines, drama, and some big players involved, including a certain billionaire, but we'll get to that later.
Oh, yeah.
So, first things first. There's this stopgap funding bill. Keeps the lights on till March 14th.
Right. Basically a temporary fix.
Yeah, but then what? What happens in March? And the thing is, it's the Republicans who got to figure this out, right? They've got the White House, the Senate, the whole shebang.
Yeah, you'd think that made things easier.
Right. You'd think so. But this funding fight was anything but smooth sailing.
It really shows you the kind of challenges they're up against. I mean, even with the majority in both chambers.
They needed Democratic votes to get this thing passed, right?
Exactly. They couldn't even pass their own stopgap without the other side.
So that March 14th deadline, that's not just another date circled on the calendar.
Oh, no, that's a ticking time bomb, for sure.
It forces them right back to the negotiating table, probably under even more pressure than this time around.
Absolutely, and with even less time to work with.
And to make things even spicier, Trump, he was pushing hard to deal with the debt ceiling and now W.
Oh, yeah, that was a big part of the drama.
Now, everyone knows the debt ceiling's always a political football, but why was he so adamant about it now?
Well, think of it this way. Hitting the debt ceiling, it's basically like maxing out your credit card.
Ooh, I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, and then not being able to pay your bills. Not good look for, the world's biggest economy.
So Trump probably saw this as leverage, right? Get some of his agenda items through.
That's a very likely scenario. He's used that tactic before.
But here's the kicker. The article says 170 House Republicans defied him on this.
Yeah, that's not a small number.
That's huge. I mean, that's a big chunk of his own party saying no.
It definitely suggests some cracks in that Republican unity.
So it's not just about dodging a shutdown or even the debt ceiling.
It's about this power struggle going on within the Republican Party itself.
Which, could really affect how they actually govern.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. It's a tug of war, right? On one side, they got to deliver on promises to their base.
Right, the stuff they campaigned on.
Exactly. And on the other side, they got to find some common ground to actually, pass laws, get stuff done.
So we've got internal struggle, looming deadline, debt ceiling ticking away.
And we haven't even gotten to Elon yet.
Oh, yeah, there's that. I bet there are some pretty strong opinions flying around about all of this.
Oh, for sure. I mean, some lawmakers are clearly not happy with this stopgap solution, this kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, it's not really a solution.
No, not really.
It just pushes the problem a few months down the line.
Right. Creates another crisis point later on, and probably a bigger one.
Like Senator Johnson said, he called it kind of stupid, said it's setting up a big mess later.
Exactly. And then you've got Representative Barr. He's urging Republicans to get it together, be more unified, communicate better.
That seems like a pretty reasonable ask, no?
Well, yeah. I mean, he thinks they got to avoid these last-minute scrambles, which just makes the whole party look
disorganized.
Yeah, unprepared, like they don't know what they're doing.
But then you've got Representative Van Orden. He's a bit more optimistic about the whole thing, right?
He sees it as like a learning process, adjusting to being in control of everything.
I mean, governing IS a lot harder than campaigning.
Oh, definitely. And especially when you've got such different personalities and priorities all within your own party.
Yeah, trying to wrangle all those different factions.
Exactly. Van Orden, he's part of that younger generation of Republicans, eager to make their mark, but maybe also a bit more pragmatic about things.
Okay, so we've got the shutdown drama, the internal Republican divisions, the debt ceiling ticking away like a time bomb, and now we're adding another layer of complexity.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Okay, so we've got this averted government shutdown, but this whole Elon Musk thing, the source material, says he got involved somehow and messed up a bipartisan deal that was already in the works.
Yeah, derailed it, basically.
Yeah, like what's the deal with that? How does that even happen?
Well, the article's a little vague on the specifics of Musk's involvement. But there's this quote from Representative Dingell, And she was pretty outspoken. She said something like, "We can't let billionaires dictate how our government functions."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty strong statement. I mean, it makes you wonder, right? Like, how much sway does someone like Musk actually have in Washington?
Well, it raises a really interesting point about the role of wealth in politics.
Yeah.
I mean, something we've seen throughout history, right? Like individuals or corporations using their money to try and influence policy get decisions made that benefit them.
Right, like lobbying and all that.
Exactly. But Musk's a little different,
Hmm.
right? He's not just some wealthy CEO. He's got this whole disruptor image, this huge public platform.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to speak his mind, even if it, like, ruffles some feathers along the way.
Right, and I think that's part of what makes him so influential. He can shape the narrative, influence public opinion, which then puts pressure on lawmakers to act a certain way.
So even if it's not direct lobbying or campaign donations, he can still exert a lot of influence just by, like, tweeting or whatever.
Exactly. It's a different kind of power, but it's definitely power nonetheless.
So we've got Musk and his unique brand of influence thrown into the mix.
Yeah, adding to the complexity.
But let's not forget all the other stuff the Republicans got to deal with in 2025.
Right, there's a lot on their plate.
Another funding deadline, the debt ceiling, Trump's people he wants confirmed, then there's all the legislation they want to pass, immigration, extending that 2017 tax law.
Yeah, it's a packed agenda, no doubt about it.
And considering all the internal divisions we talked about,
It's not going to be easy.
no, not at all. Like immigration, that's always a tough one, right?
Oh yeah, always a hot button issue.
The Republicans, they've talked about wanting to be tougher on immigration enforcement, but that's probably going to get pushback from Democrats.
Oh, absolutely, and maybe even some Republicans too.
It's one of those issues where it's really hard to find common ground.
Because it touches on such deeply held beliefs,
Yeah.
people's values.
Then there's the tax law extension. Tax cuts are popular, sure. But extending those from 2017 in this economy, that's going to be a tough sell.
The Democrats, they're going to say those cuts mostly helped the wealthy.
Yeah, and that they didn't do enough for working families.
It's going to be a battle for sure, no question about it.
And then there's the elephant in the room, the debt ceiling.
Can't ignore that forever.
They got to deal with it eventually, and when they do, I'm guessing it's going to be a major showdown.
Oh yeah, it always is. Remember back in 2011 when the U.S. credit rating got downgraded because of the whole debt ceiling fight?
Yikes, yeah, that wasn't good.
Shook the global economy. Nobody wants to see that happen again.
So the Republicans, they're facing this perfect storm, right?
Seems like it.
Internal divisions, a super busy agenda, pressure from all sides, and these major crises waiting to happen.
All happening against a backdrop of just, like, increasing polarization and gridlock. It's a tough environment to try and govern in.
True kidding. In the source material, there's this quote from Representative Connolly. He compares the situation to the start of the last Congress, which was super chaotic.
That's an interesting comparison, right?
Yeah, because it makes you think maybe this is a pattern.
A recurring thing.
Like political Groundhog Day. We keep having the same fights over and over.
And if that's the case, then what does it mean for our political system as a whole?
Are we just stuck in this loop of crisis and gridlock? Can we ever break out of it?
It's a question worth asking, for sure. It really gets to the heart of what's at stake.
Can we find some common ground, work together to actually solve problems?
Yeah, can our system actually function the way it's supposed to?
Well, guess we'll have to see what happens in 2025. It's going to be a wild ride.
I think that's a safe bet.
At least Senator Cruz is looking forward to it, he said, and I quote, "It's not going to be boring."
He's got that right.
Definitely does. So that brings us to the question we want to leave you, our listener, with.
So given everything we've talked about, this near shutdown, the deadlines coming up, the Republicans, all their internal stuff, and then someone like Elon Musk getting involved, what do you think? What are the chances 2025 starts off smoothly?
Yeah, I mean, is that even possible at this point? It feels like there are just so many ways this could all go sideways.
Right. Like, what are the things you're going to be watching for as we head into the new year? The things that'll tell you which way the wind's blowing.
Well, definitely keeping an eye on the Republicans, right? Like, can they get their act together? Can they get on the same page and present a united front?
Because if they can't, if those internal tensions keep bubbling up,
it's going to be tough for them to get anything done.
Yeah, it's like, imagine trying to herd cats.
Right.
But these cats all have very different ideas about where they want to go.
Uh-huh, exactly. And then there are those deadlines, the funding, the debt ceiling. Can they make deals without it going down to the wire every time?
Will we see another scramble like this one? Or even worse, a full-blown crisis.
And we can't forget the Democrats. They might not be in control, but they can definitely make life difficult for the Republicans.
Oh, absolutely, especially if they sense any weakness, any disarray.
They'll be ready to pounce.
They'll be looking for any opportunity to exploit. They've got their own priorities, things they'll be pushing for.
Social programs, environmental stuff, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So it'll be this back and forth, this constant negotiation and maneuvering between the two parties.
And then, of course, there's the Elon factor, right? Like, is he going to keep getting involved? Are there others like him waiting in the wings?
And if so, how's that going to affect things? Because Musk has shown he's willing to, use his influence to try and shape things.
Whether you agree with him or not, you've got to admit, he's a force to be reckoned with.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
It feels like we're heading into uncharted territory here, Divided government, super polarized voters, and then these powerful figures on the outside.
It's a recipe for, well, let's just say it's going to be interesting.
Interesting is one word for it.
Haha, exactly. So in all the source material we looked at, one thing that really stood out was this quote from Representative Connolly.
Oh, yeah.
He was comparing what's happening now to the start of the last Congress, which was total chaos.
And his point being,
Well, it makes you wonder, are we just stuck in this cycle? Crisis, gridlock, rinse and repeat.
it's a worrying thought.
Yeah, like, can we break out of it? Or is this just the new normal?
Big questions, and I don't know if we have the answers yet.
Guess we'll find out soon enough.
That we will. As we wrap up this deep dive, I think the main takeaway here is that 2025, it's going to be a make-or-break year. It could be a year of crisis, but it could also be a year where things really change.
It's going to test our system, our leaders, all of us.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And as we head into the new year, I think it's important to stay engaged, to stay informed, to keep asking questions.
Because knowledge is power, right? Especially in times like these.
Exactly. The more we understand what's going on, the better equipped we are to deal with whatever comes next.
Well said. So, to all our listeners out there, enjoy the rest of the holidays, but keep those questions in mind.
What role do you want to play in all of this? What kind of future do we want to build?
Because it's up to all of us, right? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and happy holidays, everyone.